Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Japan once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel many times before. So these guys are still a relatively new addition to the Japanese beer scene, but they've built up a very good reputation for themselves over the last couple of years. And if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they're probably best known for their different kinds of IPAs. They've made a really big name with their hazy IPAs, of course, but we've had West Coasters and Blacks from them before, and we've had a few other styles from this brewery as well. In recent times, they've been putting out a few sour beers, which I really do need to try. But the beer that we're going to have a look at today is actually one of their more old school releases, and this is one that I've wanted to try for quite some time, but I've just never actually come across it when I've been in Japan. Thankfully though, I found a can of it here in Hong Kong. This one's a really highly rated beer. I've heard very good things about it. It's a style that I very much enjoy, and one that I know this brewery can do very well. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to Yamanashi Prefecture, which is out to the west of Tokyo. We're going to go to Hokuto-shi, to be specific, Hokuto City, if you want to kind of anglicize it a little bit. But that means that we're going to have a look at yet another beer from the wonderful Uchu Brewing. So this particular beer is called Black Hole. It comes in at 8% ABV, and this one is a West Coast Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, as you can probably tell from the artwork of this one compared to the last Uchu beers that I've reviewed, this one is one of their more kind of old school releases. If you go back to the first Uchu beers that I reviewed a couple of years ago, you will definitely see that. The artwork on this one is a lot more akin to their older stuff. The newer artwork's a little bit more bright and colourful and things like that. But like I said, this is a beer that I've wanted to try for quite a wee while, but I just never came across this one while I was over in Japan. Usually it would be liquor shop Asahiya in Osaka that I would go to for these. But this one I actually found in Gerbier in Chimshatsui here in Kowloon, and it seems that they're getting a very regular supply of Uchu beer these days, which I'm obviously very happy about. But yeah, always nice to return to Uchu Brewing. Let's crack on and see what this beer has in store for us then. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Uchu Brewing before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated. And remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. Just go in there, use the little search bar, put your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Japanese playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to quite regular at the moment because I am based out in Asia these days. And do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Uchu Brewing once again then. So, Uchu Brewing, as I've told you before, were founded back in 2017 by Masahiro Kusunoze and Rumiko Suzuki. So these guys both came from a background in agriculture, and they first encountered craft beer on the US West Coast, and they said that they loved the different personalities that each brewery had, and they wanted to bring some of this craft beer culture back with them to Japan. So Masahiro is the kind of chief brewer, if you like, these days, and in the early days Rumiko was doing the kind of marketing and business side of things, but she was taking part in the brewing and farming side of the company as well. But these days these guys are of course more the kind of face of the company and pushing to expand it and things like that. But they actually started their farming activities back in 2009 under the name of Space Farmers, and they were growing rice and vegetables and other things without pesticides. But in 2016 they planted hops, and they've got their own hop fields right next to the brewery, and they often hand pick a number of the hops that actually go into the beers. And today they're also running miso making, rice paddy and other kind of farming workshops as well. But in the early days when they were starting up the brewery, they raised over 3 million yen through crowdfunding, and they used this to build their own brewery in Hokuto in Yamanashi Prefecture, and much of this initial construction was DIY, they did it themselves. So they sold their first beers in 2018, and then they expanded the brewery in 2021 with a second round of crowdfunding, this time raising over 17 million yen. But the next year in 2022, they raised a further 12 million yen, and they used this to open their first tap room, which is called Roadside Station Kobuchisawa, which is about 15 kilometers or so away from the brewery. But over the next few years, they apparently plan to open up a new brewery, and they're currently working to produce some barrel-aged beers as well, actually. I think that's going to be a mix of like big imperial stouts and barley wines and stuff like this, but also some kind of farmhouse sours and things like that, like wild ales and stuff like that. But the name Uchu Brewing, of course, means space brewing, so that's a name that they've brought with them from their farming days, of course, and most of the beers as a result have kind of space themed names about them. It could be named after some kind of star or something like that, or just like a kind of more broad space concept, if you like. But as of June 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced about 230 different beers according to Untappd, and like I said to you, they've done a variety of different styles, but probably this brewery are best known for their different kinds of IPAs. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Uchu Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. But yeah, let's go on and have a little look at the beer itself. So, as you can see with this one, this is a standard 350 milliliter can, I'm sorry, forget that. In Japan they like to sell things in 350 milliliter cans. You can see plain silver top on the can there, and you can see the label on this one, the artwork is kind of pretty much what you would expect for some of the old school Uchu Brewing things. Yeah, in Japan this beer would probably cost you about 900 yen, maybe 1,000 yen, something like that. That's about 50 Hong Kong dollars, £5 sterling, like €6, maybe $6.50 American, something like that. But here in Hong Kong it was quite a wee bit more than that. I can't remember what I paid for this one, but yeah, maybe at least double the price actually for that over here. But Japanese beer is quite hard to get. The importing and stuff is quite difficult. But to tell you the details of this beer, so this one is hopped with Citra, Cryo and Chinook and Nectaron. We know all of these hops quite well. So 14% alpha acid, Citra, American hop, same with Chinook. Citra is going to give you that kind of big, juicy, mango-y sort of character, quite a bit of grapefruit and a more West Coast IPA as well, and quite a wee bit of a kind of lychee, gooseberry sort of thing. Chinook is going to give you that big sort of pine resiny note and quite a bit of grapefruit. Nectaron will be interesting because I've not had that in a West Coast IPA before, as far as I can remember. But Nectaron is a fairly new New Zealand hop. It gives you quite a lot of pineapple from what I remember, and I want to say that it's about 12% alpha acid, but it could be a little bit higher than that from memory. But yeah, Nectaron's becoming quite popular actually these days, and that's the thing that I thought was quite interesting with this one, that this was one of the more old school beers from Black Hole Brewing, but that it contains Nectaron. So yeah, and I did check. They used to have batch numbers on these actually, but yeah, it seems that Nectaron is the right one. So the other thing we should talk about with the beer as well is that on Untappd, you can always translate, they always have the little blurb thing that's on the side of the can here. So you can see that they've always got a little thing on the side of the can here, which is concept. So the concept they have, when we translate this into English, it says, a black hole shrouded in mystery, the black hole that swallows everything, records information about all five-dimensional fruits from the past to the future. The end is a new beginning, the aromatic aroma of five-dimensional fruits. And the brewer's note is, let's meet at the black hole where we are sucked into mandarin, lychee, white grape and greffel. I'm not sure exactly what greffel is, but yeah, that's another thing. So yeah, that's everything we really need to tell you about the beer. As we said earlier, 8% West Coast Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA, this one. Let's get it open and see what it's all about. Black Hole from Uchu Brewing in Yamanashi Prefecture to the west of Tokyo in Japan. I tell you something, that smells good. It really does. So there we are. Pour the full can with this one because it is a little 350. So there we are. So before the head in this one disappears, you can see that it's poured with just over a finger of quite a bumpy but perfect white head, I would say. I'll just let you have a little look at that there. So you can see some medium-sized bubbles on the surface of the liquid there, but it does get more kind of soapy and bumpy the further up that you go. But yeah, in terms of the colour of this one, you've got that lovely kind of pale golden straw colour to this beer actually. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few different things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil plays a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But when it comes to IPAs like that, you don't often have to care about those particular variables. But when it comes to the West Coast IPA, for me, this style can lean two ways. They can be a little bit more bready and biscuity, such as the Pliny the Elder from Russian River, or they can be a bit more oily and caramelly, such as the Sierra Nevada Torpedo. Those are the two ends of the West Coast kind of scale for me. But yeah, the colour of this one, to me, the fact that it's more yellow, this suggests that this is going to be a bit more bready and biscuity rather than having some of the more oily two-rows or, you know, Cara Ambers and things like that in it actually. So yeah, it's quite interesting to see this one. There is a little bit of carbonation visible in this one. You can see some of it going up toward the bottom of the head there, and that head has incidentally faded away to be a thinner kind of foamy layer, and there's a wee foamy ring around the edge of the glass there. But yeah, all in all, it looks pretty nice, this one, and pretty much what you would expect of a West Coast IPA, to be honest with you. You can see a little bit of natural haze to this one, but I think some of that is the condensation on the glass, to be honest with you. But all in all, pretty much what you would expect from a West Coast IPA on the breadier and biscuity end of the spectrum. But yeah, I think we've said everything we need to about the appearance. Let's crack on and have a wee look at the aroma of this one. I'm very, very curious about this. That smells nice. So, it's kind of what you'd expect, to be honest with you. If you know this style and you know these hops, it is giving you a lot of what you would expect. So, yeah, for me, this one is quite nostalgic actually. I think if I was to smell this blind, I would probably guess that it was more New Zealand hoppy rather than anything else. I'd probably guess that there was a bit of Nelson Sauvin or Motueka or something like that in it. Still getting used to Nectaron a little bit, right enough. But the beer gives you everything you would want from this style. You've got a bit of breadiness and things like that. You've got that nice kind of clean sweetness in there as well. Good little bit of green component. And of course you've got those nice big oily fruits as well. So yeah, the way everything kind of pieces together in this beer, I think, is really, really nice. So yeah, let's break the aroma down then and just describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So the backbone of this beer, you can tell with this one, you've got that lovely little bit of like fresh white bready hedgehog bread crust coming out of the beer, and I think that's really nice. You can smell that in there. There's definitely like a little touch of wood and a little bit of cracker in there as well. These are kind of undertones, to be honest with you, but yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is really, really nice. So yeah, fresh white bready hedgehog bread crust in there, a little bit of like Jacob's cream cracker or wood or something like that, and then on top of that you start to get the actual bready notes out of the beer. So there's a little bit of a kind of sweet wholemeal brown bready character in there for sure, and then on top of that you absolutely can get like a fresher, fluffier sort of white bready character to it as well, especially when you sugar it up. The thing you'll find when you sugar this beer up is you get a little bit more of the sweetness out of it as well. So yeah, for me, there's a little bit of straight up sweet caramel coming out of this one, which I think is really nice. So that's in there, obviously, straight up sweet caramel. But you also have a good little bit of like McVitie's digestive biscuit coming out of the beer too. So yeah, you have that. It really does remind me just of McVitie's digestive biscuit rather than anything else. I've got a feeling that this beer might be using a combination of American and German malt. But if I mean, the Japanese, of course, do produce a little bit of their own malt, but I don't think it's that. I don't think it's that widely I don't think it's produced on such a great scale actually. I'd be very curious to know what malts most Japanese brewers prefer, but I think most of it is imported from Germany or the US and Belgium probably as well. But yeah, the malty backbone of this beer is quite nice. One of the things you have to remember about West Coast IPAs as well is that they tend to use barley malt rather than using wheat, malted wheat and malted oats as New England's will, in addition to the barley malt. But yeah, this one, very, very clean malt base, and I think everything goes together really quite nicely in this one, so gets a thumbs up from me. Yeah, so the I think that's everything we need to say about the malty side of this one, in all honesty. Let's go on to the hoppy side of things. So for me, the green component of this beer is pretty much what you'd expect. So you've got a nice little touch of earthiness in there for sure. You can smell a little bit of herbal character, but there's quite a little bit of floral aromaticity to this one, maybe a little touch of a danker pine resin, and that's going to be the Chinook that gives you the pine resin. But it's not overly pungent in this one, which is kind of interesting. And this beer is fairly fresh actually, we should point that out. But there's a good little bit of grassiness in there. Overall though, I would say that the green component of this beer is actually pretty oily, in all honesty. So yeah, that's quite an interesting point to make about this one. So yeah, the thing to remember with IPAs as well is that you have 3 different kinds of hopping. So you've got early edition hopping, which takes place in the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you pretty much all bitterness and a deeper danker flavour and aroma. You've got late edition hopping, which takes place within the last half hour of the wort boil. That gives you a little bit of bitterness, mainly flavour and aroma, and it also gives you a very bright green component. Then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that gives you all flavour and aroma and a very bright kind of green component as well. So West Coast IPAs tend to use all 3, which is why they have that deeper danker component, and it dominates. New England IPAs rely on late edition and dry hopping, which is why they're less bitter and more kind of soft and juicy. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together, I think, is really nice in this one. You can smell it's got a little bit of that dankness there, but mainly a kind of oily green component, I would say. So yeah, the way everything pieces together in that green component, I think, is really nice in this one. Don't think we need to say too much more about that. Let's go on and look at the fruity side of things before we taste the beer. So yeah, for me, this beer, there's a little touch of grapefruit in there, but not too much. I actually would have expected a little bit more considering that Chinook is involved in this one, but Chinook could well have been used as the bittering hop in this beer. We have to bear that in mind. But yeah, on top of that, you do get that nice oily passion fruit from the you get that nice oily passion fruit from the Citra. There's a bit of that oily juicy mango in there as well. I get wee bits of apricot and quite a little bit of pineapple in this one as well, and that's the nectaron that's going to give you that. So there's papaya in there, there's apricot, and I am actually, they said lychee with this one, I'm actually getting a little bit of that lychee and a good little bit of gooseberry character coming out of this one as well. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together in this beer, I think, is really, really nice. So yeah, I like that with this one. The aroma in this one is really, really interesting. So yeah, very inviting, pretty much everything, as I say, I would expect from a West Coast IPA. It doesn't come across as overly bitter in the aroma, and it doesn't come across as overly boozy either, which is quite interesting. I could smell this one and probably think it was a single West Coast IPA, so that's going to be an interesting point when we actually try this one. So it's quite reserved in its aroma, but certainly gives me everything I would want. So yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But let's have a taste of this one then and see what it's all about. So this is the Black Hole, an 8% West Coast double IPA from Uchu Brewing in Hokuto, Yamanashi Prefecture over in Japan. Slanja, skål, cheers, kanpai. Yeah, that's pretty damn good actually. yeah, first impression of this one is nice, slick, oily, clean West Coast double IPA. Very easy to drink for its ABV as well, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, I think Uchu Brewing have done another very, very solid beer. It does taste a wee bit more old school, this one, and it kind of reminds me of why I got so interested in this brewery when I first discovered them back in, what was that, like 2019, 2018, something like that. Yeah, these guys do some really, really solid stuff. So for me, it's nice to take a step back from their more modern releases sometimes and try things like this and just remember how good they were. So yeah, this is really damn good. If you get the chance to try this one, this is a nice proper taste of what old school Uchu was, but it kind of shows you as well just how much the brewery has evolved. So I'd probably recommend that you try this one and you know, one of the more recent hazy releases. So yeah, good stuff. So let's break the flavour of this one down then and just describe it for you even more in depth. But yeah, it gives you that lovely clean sweet malt base, nice bit of green component, and that oily fruity character. So yeah, let's go to the middle third of your palate in this beer then. So for me, backbone of the beer, and I will say that this is a beer that really delivers on what you would expect based on the aroma. That's definitely fair to say. So the backbone of this beer, you've got that lovely fresh white bready bread crust in this one. And as you move further forward, you've got a nice little bit of a Jacob's cream crackery sort of thing going on there. So yeah, a little bit of Jacob's cream cracker in this one for sure. A layer of that cracker, and then a little bit of woodiness further forward on that middle third of your palate as well. So yeah. But yeah, on the the malty side of things, then above the kind of fresh hedgehog white bready bread crust and the crackery layer, you can feel there's a layer of like a sweet wholemeal brown bready sort of thing coming out of the beer. So yeah, for me, the sweet brown bready character in this one is quite it's quite nice. It lingers there into the aftertaste and gives you that little bit more sweetness. And yeah, it's above that you can feel the nice kind of white bready character to this one as well, a more kind of fluffy white bread, but it still has a wee bit of sweetness to it as well, which I do quite like. So yeah, the sweetness that comes out of this one, I think, is really quite nice. Above the white bread, I do wonder if there's maybe a little touch of wheat in this one, because it does have a slightly more dense white bready character above the kind of barley malt white bread. But then yeah, above that you have a little bit of a slightly, I'd maybe go and say there's a very light toasty kind of caramel there. But then if you go to the dead centre of your palate, you can feel there is a little bit of sweet caramel there, but that's quite minimal. That's right in the dead centre of your palate, and that of course is going to be the boozy side of this beer. But as you move further out from that, you get a little bit more of that kind of concentrated, boozy, McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. And then you've got that you've got that more kind of light, slightly grainy McVitie's digestive biscuit to this one, and a wee bit of toasty character underneath. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together in this one, I think, is quite nice. Yeah, I think the way the kind of malty side of this beer goes together, I think, is really, really nice. So yeah, all in all, really interesting beer, and the malty side of things, but you know, kind of what we'd expect. But I think it just shows you it's so well done. It gives you everything you'd expect, but it is just a very, very well done beer, this one. I think we've said everything we need about the middle third of your palate with this beer, though. Let's go to the back third of your palate then. And one thing I should say, as well as I often say in reviews, is Further forward on your palate, you're going to get the more sweeter flavours, of course, and further back, you're going to get the more kind of dry and bitter flavours. And generally speaking, the back third of your palate will give you very similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. So yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of bready build up in there. So the base of that, border region, if you like, you can feel there's a little bit of the brown bread in there, which is a little bit fluffier and more airy than the white bread above that, and then what I suspect could just be a little touch of wheat in the beer as well. But the base of that back third of your palate, you can feel that nice kind of dry white bready hedgehog kind of thing above that. Then you've got the Jacob's cream cracker in there as well. Then above that you get the the kind of the brown bready layer, and you can feel that brown bready layer is a lot lighter, more airy and kind of fluffier, but slightly drier as well. Then the white bready character sits above that, and again it's a bit lighter, more airy and kind of fluffier, but still drier too. And you can feel what I do suspect is just a little touch of wheat creeping over the top of that. Just gives you a wee bit of bitiness. So let's have a little look at the yeasty side of this beer then. So yeah, the yeasty side of this beer, for me, you've got a nice little bit of kind of brown bread in the middle, white bread around the edge, and then a little bit of a kind of soft white bready bread crust around the edge of it too. The yeasty side of the character, I think the yeasty side of the beer gives you a wee bit more crackery character too into the aftertaste, which is interesting. You can really feel that sitting at the back of that front third of your palate there. So that's really interesting too, and definitely the back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller, but then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. But yeah, I like that with this one. But yeah, for me, the green. Let's move on to the green component of this one. The green component of this one, I actually really quite like, because it just comes across as really nice and smooth and oily. I think it might have been, there was one of the hops in this one was cryo, actually, and you can feel that nice oiliness in the thing there. But it's interesting. Cryo hops and West Coast IPAs for me are quite interesting because they give you this lovely oiliness, but you can still get that bit of deep dank character out of them. But yeah, in the back corners of your palate, for sure, you do get that nice little bit of earthiness there. Then as you move further forward, you get a teeny little bit of herbal character, and it's interesting because the beer becomes very floral and slightly spicy the further forward you go, but you've got that lovely smooth oily character to it, and that slightly deeper kind of pine resiny note coming out of the beer as well. But yeah, I think the way that goes together is really quite nice. So for me, round the front curve of the palate, it's definitely got more of a nice oily, grassy sort of thing to it, which I do enjoy. So yeah, the green component of this one, I think, is really nice. But yeah, floral aromaticity in there, a little bit spicy. As I say, you just get a bit of that deeper, danker note from the Chinook as well, which I think is nice. But let's look at the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of things. So yeah, the border region between front and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. The brown bread, you get that little bit of brown bready character underneath, this fluffier white bready character top. Then again, what I suspect is a little touch of wheat on the top. With the base of the front third of your palate, you've got the white bready bread crust in there, bit of cracker, brown bread, white bread, slightly more dense white bread above that, and then you've got that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, let's have a little look at that fruity side of things then, just to round off the tasting section. So yeah, for me, the back third of your palate, the back of that front third of your palate there, you get a nice, you do get a little touch of grapefruit out of this one. You've got Citra in there, you've got Chinook, you are going to get a little bit of it, but it's not one of the more pungent and powerful flavours in this beer. As you move further forward from that, you get a nice bit of oily, you do get a nice little bit of oily, I would say kind of passion fruit and things out of it. Yeah, nice sort of oily passion fruity sort of character out of it. And as you move into the middle of that front third of your palate, you can feel there's a nice sort of juicy mango there, but it feels like it's a little bit papaya-like underneath, and you've got a wee bit of an oily pineapple-y character sitting above that. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together in this one, I think is really nice as well. As you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, you start to get more of the kind of, yeah, you start to get more of the the kind of oily orangey notes out of the beer. It has this little bit, it has, I think I always found nectar on it. It gives you this wee bit of an oily orangey kind of character to it, but yeah, the pineapple, I think it's oily orange and pineapple, I would say, but underneath you do get a little bit of the gooseberry kind of note, and you do get a wee bit of this lychee kind of character as well, and those are going to come from the Citra, I would say. So Citra is really showing you its proper kind of West Coast character in this beer, which is what you'd expect in all honesty. So yeah, I think you've got a little bit of a kind of gooseberry, lychee kind of thing underneath that. You've got a little bit of you've got a little bit of, I would say, you've just got a little bit of the kind of tangerine-y, orangey character sitting above it, but a lot of pineapple. The more you go into the aftertaste with this beer, I would say it's pineapple that comes out of this one. So yeah, I do like how that kind of pieces together in this beer actually. So everything goes together, and this one is really nice. It feels just a little bit more of an old school West Coast IPA, this one, but of course the nectar on is the thing that kind of makes it that little bit more modern, and the cryo of course as well. So all in all, an interesting beer, this one. I've certainly enjoyed it. Wouldn't hesitate to drink this again, of course. But let's round off the review with a wee look at the mouthfeel then. For me, mouthfeel wise, this beer, it's kind of top end of mid-body. The carbonation is very smooth. It's got that lovely cleanliness that some of the Japanese beers can have, obviously good water quality over there. But in terms of IBUs with this one, what would we say about that? Yeah, I mean, IBU wise, this beer doesn't feel too heavy, this one. I'd say it's maybe like 50, I'd maybe say it's about 60, 70 IBUs, this one. It doesn't feel as if it's a full 80, 90, but it still has that little bit of bitterness too. I want to say about 60, definitely. So about 60 IBUs in this beer. The malty backbone, this one, as we say, we've got a bit of greeniness underneath, the smoothness in the middle, and the sweetness on top, kind of oily character in there. Then you've got that lovely oily, that oily fruity character in there. That's mainly tropical fruit, I would say, drier tropical fruit, but yeah, you do get a wee bit more of a citrusy edge to it as well. But all in all, really, really nice beer, this one, and I'm glad that I got to taste it. Definitely cool to try this one after wanting to try it for quite a bit of time. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This was the Black Hole, an 8% West Coast double IPA from the wonderful Uchu Brewing in Hokuto, Yamanashi Prefecture, over in Japan. Till the next time, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Uchu Brewing as well. And we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. I do have one more can to look at from these guys, so you'll probably see that appear in a few videos time. Thank you for watching. Check out my social media, check out Uchu Brewing social media, and I'll see you guys again soon. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and kanpai.